Transitioning Humanitarians Live with Viki. Hi, Viki.
Hi, Asel. Hello, everyone.
Viki suggested that we talk about intuition this month, which is an exciting topic that I'm sure many of us are still exploring or are maybe already good at it, or definitely trying to figure out what it is and how to understand it. And that's why we thought that it would be great for us to be tapping into it if we see the use of it and share our experience of how we use it as well. So that's why this episode will be a bit of an overview of what it is and when it's good for, when it's not, and how do we know it's an intuition versus something else, right? So that's what we want to be talking about. And then in the coming weeks, we'll be diving into other areas as well. So, Vicky, let's start with the classic example. What is intuition?
Exactly. Yes. What is intuition? Like I think intuition has several words. People usually call it different thing, like hunch or like this inner sense that I have. So I think already with the definition, we each have to define it for ourselves what it exactly is, because it's not something we can put outside. We can measure, not something we can display somewhere. So that's why I think it's important that each one of us defines what is the intuition, the inner calling that we have, the inner calling that calls us to do something maybe that we have been was wishing to do for a long time, something that we are aiming or we really want to do. So I think it's this feeling, it's this inner compass, I would call it. It's this inner compass that actually gives us these subtle hints of where to go in life or what is it that is good for us. I will maybe use also something that Einstein said. I'm not going to paraphrase because I don't remember exact the words, but he basically said that intuition is the greater master. The intellect is its servant. That it's the intuition
Mm,
that tells you where to go, where you really don't know. That it's this inner voice that leads you towards your responses that you're looking for. The intellect will help you on the way. So maybe that's
yeah,
how I would start. What is your
amazing.
definition, Asel? How do you perceive intuition?
I was also thinking actually this week about how do I really know that this is intuition? And I think the only thing that comes to mind is that deep inner knowing. I think this is the only way I can define it. And it comes in the form for me of feeling, right? It feels like some people say gut feeling, I think,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And I think it comes in that form of feeling that feels very calm and not urge like it's not frantic or hustly. It's more like a very calm and that says no, this is the way we're going. And then even though my brain and my analytical part may disagree sometimes, but still feeling like even if it doesn't make sense like from the reasoning perspective,
Yeah.
it still makes sense to me somehow. I don't yet know why that is. I can't really like maybe um, give reasoning for why that is, but still wanting to go that way, right? So I think that's how I would say intuition is for me. And I've been curious to see how the official definition is, at least according to Cambridge. And I think that it was also similar in terms of inner knowing before the reasoning or
Yeah.
without the conscious
Yeah.
reasoning, right?
Yeah.
So knowing things, even though consciously maybe you would have argued differently or you wouldn't even think about, but somehow you are taken to that direction or you are called, like you're saying, to be doing things, even though you feel like, well, logically it doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
So now that we have a bit of a definition, and I love how everyone can like see and notice for themselves what is that feeling is and how is it different than other feelings, right? How can we really know and trust it and what that looks like? I think that's a beautiful thing for everyone to notice it. So let's go maybe into then knowing, okay, when it's not an intuition, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's like always giving the contrast maybe helps also define it further, at least for me. So how would you say that when you know that this is not an intuition?
Yeah. I think that when it's not intuition, I think it's the maybe some inner talk or something that leads us to something negative, or leads us to have negative feelings, and leads us to have negative perceptions. I do
Mm,
believe that's maybe the saboteur voice or the self limiting thoughts we have, that really also stem from usually from early childhood or some trauma experience, and similar. So I believe that's the situation when it's not intuition, because I believe intuition, just like you say, the inner knowing leads us towards some sort of a higher aim or higher goal. It doesn't lead us to destructive or to negative experiences. I would this is my understanding and how I would probably define it.
yes. I was also thinking for myself that probably when it's not intuition is where my fear interferes,
Yes.
right? And I think that's simply because of the protective mechanisms that we all have that fear is a representative of. And therefore, I feel when that fear appears and it's so strong,
Hmm.
it's likely that my analytical brain wants to
Yeah.
back up the
Yeah.
fear more rather than back up the intuition more, right? And I think that's a very normal thing that many of us do because fear has such an important job in our body, and therefore it has this dominant voice that sounds as if like I'm being protected.
Hmm.
And in some ways, it's good to listen to that, right? Because I also want like to honor all of the parts of the wisdom coming up from within us, whatever that is, whatever whether it's protecting or whether it's allowing us to go wherever we want to. And I think giving enough space to that fear and whatever the protective things that are happening then allows me then to have, okay, I hear you, my voice that keeps warning me, right? But at the same time, I want to do this. So like I think classic example that humanitarians experience this is when we want to go to a field mission that might be very dangerous,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? But we really want to go there because we feel like we could do a lot of things. We know we could be useful and this could be a great opportunity and all of this. And we have that gut inner feeling like, yes, we can handle it. Yes, it's scary, but we also know that this is the way to go. And
Yeah.
I think we have done this so many times,
Yeah.
even though maybe parents, everyone else said, well, are you crazy going there? Because no
Yeah.
one would, da da da. But we still decide to do that. And I want to feel like that is my intuition winning, even though the fear is high, right? And that's how I want to think for myself in terms of like getting the subtle differences of, oh, this is when the fear is coming in. This is when I'm suppressing a bit of the inner knowing.
Yeah.
And I just want to be aware when I'm doing it so that I don't suppress my own wisdom.
Yeah, yeah. It's important what you're saying, because it also makes me think about all or some of the instances where I really consciously I remember that I took a really major decision in my life
Yeah.
based on intuition. And there was I literally remember moments when when this intuition came to me, and I mean,
Mm,
I think the only way to say it spoke to me.
yeah.
Um, and I will maybe mention two moments. I will mention moment when I decided for the field of the study,
Yeah.
which was very unusual. I studied Arabic Islamic studies, which is unlike anyone else in my family, in my environment. There was
Mm,
nobody knew anyone who had been studying this, and
yeah.
I had a deep hunch. I had this intuition that was telling me, that really led me to an extraordinary life and extraordinary
Yeah.
experiences, because everything developed from there. So I'm really thankful to have listened to this intuition, and I felt that it's deeply correct.
Yeah.
Even though I had all these people around me being a little bit surprised, very some of them, I think my parents also in shock. So this was something that I felt really deeply, and also the maybe I will mention a second example, the example that led me out of the eighth sector, where I
Yeah.
also remember that it was this hunch, as I was in the process of taking sabbatical and really taking some time off and really not knowing where I'm going, not being already convinced at all I want to stay in the eighth sector, but I didn't know again what else I could do. And there was this intuition that told me, that's it, this is it, and really told me, you're actually even not going back to this sector, and you are staying. And that was also very deep, and I exactly also remember the moment where when and where it happened. So I just
Yeah.
wanted maybe also for our viewers to have this example, because you will be able to also identify when intuition spoke to you, and you may also remember what was the result of you having listened to that
Yeah.
intuition.
Yes, exactly. And I also wanted to speak to this part of where we may have this like second guessing and doubt
Mhm,
is in terms of, oh, is this really intuition? It's not. Should I really go or should I really not? And if that is the situation you find yourself in, I always tell myself I rather want to go to backing up my intuition, even if I believe it may not be, but I rather want to make the error, let's say, on the side of backing up intuition simply because I want to give myself this permission that I honor and respect my intuition and want to like follow it.
mhm,
Even in the end, it turns out not the way that I thought it could be or whatever, right? But then I tell myself that's one of the ways I learn more about reading my intuition, right? That's one of the
mhm,
ways I get to know it more rather than being always on the cautious side
yeah,
of it, because that simply for me shows that I didn't trust myself and my
mhm,
intuition enough that
yeah,
I went for it all the way.
yeah,
And up to now, I feel like all of my decisions that I have made out of just wanting to do this, and I feel like that's a lot to do with my intuition, that
mhm,
has always worked out well.
yeah, yeah,
Now, of course, like Viki was saying, you should like look at your own past and see how that has been for you. And if you feel like, oh, I followed the intuition and it was a mistake or it was a big failure or whatever it is, then get curious as to how you have at the time taken intuition into account. Was it an intuition?
yeah,
If it was, then how now you could do it differently,
mhm,
feeling it or understanding it more, right? Instead of just like labeling it all, I should never because I will get hurt if
yeah.
I do this kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My personal experience, and also I believe that intuition is never wrong. So if
Mhm.
it has led us somewhere that is there was not even in the end effect positive, or led to some development, it either was not intuition or we have interpreted it in a way we have I would say manipulated the intuition
Mm.
almost, I would say.
I love that way of interpreting it because I have always thought that intuition, at least like my intuition, always needs me supporting it, meaning that like backing it up and saying, even if we go and do wrong things in the end, or it turns out to be a failure, I will still be rather with it and going for it because then I have at least learned things, right? But it doesn't mean that I will then beat myself up for how I could have done it. I should have been better by now, or whatever the
Yeah.
things, and that's not useful, and we all know it, right? So, Vicky, maybe now it's time to talk about when intuition can be negative, meaning that maybe there is certain things that we should watch out for in terms of when we're listening to our intuition. Because I was thinking the other examples, like sometimes intuitively when I meet someone new, I may have a certain like caution and a bit reserved feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And then it feels like my intuition, right? My intuition is like, I don't know, this person, right? Whatever it is. And I was thinking, I don't know if I should be listening to that intuition when that's happening, or
Yeah.
should I be, right? This was my like thinking, and I want you to also like share maybe
Mm-hmm.
how do you see when maybe intuition is actually not leading us to things, or maybe there is something else mixed up that we should be aware of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. What I maybe would look at it. What are the situations where not to use intuition, right? Like
Yeah.
situation when we need some concrete, tangible results, measurable results. So if
Mm,
I like, or like because intuition leads us, deals in my understanding deeper things in life and deeper meaning in life. So intuition is not going to answer us, should I go shopping today, or should I go to school or something like that. I don't think those are those are the answers you will get from intuition. But I think it's so that's what this is what I would say, how I
mm,
sort of use intuition.
mm.
Yeah.
So I was thinking maybe one or two things I can share and see for yourself how that
Mm-hmm.
can like play out for you. And so one of the ways that I have seen or noticed myself, I like intuitively I wanted to be reserved, as I said, right? From the person that I met, I don't know anything about, or maybe the personality type that I have never met before, like, and then for my brain, of course, the like fear, intuition mixed in, I guess, is like saying, I don't know, should you be trusting that person, right? In those moments, I have had this dilemma a bit of, oh, maybe I should rather not to. And then over time in my work experience, and now I really feel like I feel there is also a certain bias that I may have, like,
Mm-hmm.
that is not conscious to me,
Mm-hmm.
and that tend to then interfere and mix in, and then I interpret it as for, oh, it's my intuition telling me I shouldn't deal with that person, right? And maybe for some people it's useful, but I found for myself that I rather want to like get to know and trust that person, and the the logic behind is like trust until proven otherwise, basically, right? A bit like guilty, no, innocent
Yes.
until proven guilty, right?
Yeah.
That is similar logic, and I have tried to accommodate like that principle simply because I still see that there are certain biases that I can
Yeah.
notice, and I may misinterpret it, saying, "Oh, my
Yeah.
intuition saying I shouldn't be dealing with them,"
Mm-hmm.
which actually may not be the case. I
Yeah.
noticed, for instance, I was flying, I don't remember, somewhere, and then the pilot was a woman. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I, I know I can't sleep because I need to be vigilant. And when I was thinking, I was like, I can't believe I'm thinking this,
Yeah.
right? And that's when I noticed that, my God, my bias is so ingrained that comes out in ways that, and me being woman thinking about it made me ashamed of myself, but at the same time my brain was like, if it was a man pilot, I probably wouldn't even notice,
Mm-hmm.
but because it was a woman, I was like, maybe I should be vigilant, right? So this, like, you can see that at the time it felt like, oh, very intuitive thing to do, to be vigilant,
Yeah.
but then noticing that no, it's my bias that is like coming in the form of intuition or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, the knowing, and I know that that's wrong, like
Yeah.
that's not right, and this is just my bias. And the other thing that comes to mind is the counterintuitive things like
Yeah.
feeling, allowing feelings. And I feel like here my brain wants to so much tell me, oh, the intuitive thing to do is escape them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I need to go to the counterintuitive part, which is just staying and being with them.
Yeah.
And then having that. relationship with my feelings without trying to get rid of them, without trying to fix them and all the things. So that would be for me like a counterintuitive,
Yeah.
even though it's coming from the fear that I can't handle my emotions, right? So these are two examples that come where you can be like subtly convinced by your brain that that's just intuitive thing to do is not to deal with them basically.
Yeah.
Instead, counterintuitive could be let's get serious.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting the examples you are mentioning because indeed, and it's very funny because I was giving a training a few hours ago, and where I was talking about unconscious bias and
Hmm.
bias, and again,
Yeah.
so this is something again, can be confused with intuition. I do believe that these things that when we there is a prevalent idea or judgment about a group of people or someone that we can assume that, oh, that's my intuition. But I do believe that intuition speaks a little deeper. Again, it may be difficult to define 100%. But you also mentioned something very interesting, where from what I was hearing is that sometimes intuition can be against logic, that we
Yeah.
can consider that this is almost illogical, like
Hmm.
it doesn't
It
make
sounds
sense.
to me. Yeah, 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 exactly. It sounds to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I think sometimes the deeper, and I've heard actually even scholars talking about it, that sometimes the intuition told them something so deep and something that was as a public idea was not known, or it was like almost unacceptable. So it can be something that might even shock you. It's not, I would say. It might be rare, but it's not impossible.
Yes, and I can actually give you one example where I have seen it over and over is that when I was finishing school and wanting to study, and the society's intuition, right, or wisdom at the time was that one needs to get married and have kids, and that's just like a natural progression of that community, let's say. And going against that felt so much like going against everyone else's wisdom, right? Going against everyone else's knowing that that's the best way to live life in their minds, right? And and at the time, I think my intuition was against their intuition a bit, in the sense of my intuition was that I wanted to create more freedom out of like this fear-stricken environment, and I really felt like, okay, I was fighting my intuition, like their intuition basically. But at the same time, the logical thing was to do was that to follow that their intuition, right? Or their wisdom, because that has been tested so many times. So therefore, they knew that this is the way to go. And then my logic was that's not.
Yeah.
And I think there is always like the way I want to think about is that intuition starts the calling or like the direction,
Yeah.
and then logic can either support or refute it. But I would love to suggest like how can you give more space to support that intuition more instead of refuting it, because I feel like in terms of like making things label as it won't work, we are so good at it already. Many of us just immediately like automatically can find thousand reasons why it won't work, right? But if we have the intuition that's saying that we could and we want to, that's a great wisdom to excavate in and bring it more, and then bring the logic to support it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I agree.
Amazing. So I think we have covered all the questions that we said. Maybe we could, for the final, like words in terms of what could be the things that our people could work on, look at, so that they are more in tune and ready to hear their intuition. What would you say, Viki?
Yeah. That's important because many people in their super busy daily life, where you don't get even a minute of empty mind, of a headspace or even heart space, it's almost impossible to tap into your intuition if you're so busy and constantly connected, because intuition comes in the moments of peace and really tranquility and sort of relax. I don't want to say relaxation when you are sleeping, but sort of inner peace.
Mm.
Or inner sort of calm. So it's very important if we want to actually tap into our intuition. We really need to find moments of calm, moments in the nature. So that's what I would say. Don't expect to connect with your deep wisdom within you if you're like constantly busy, and if you're connected, if you can't find, that's almost impossible. Those are you would connect to your saboteur or your sort of questioning mind, but it's unlikely you would be able to connect to your intuition. That's maybe what.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And also the other thing I want to say is that, like we're saying, when sometimes the logic may go against intuition, if that is you and you find yourself in that space, is that also notice that many things may sound illogical simply because you haven't done it before, and there will be like fear around it, right? So that's why when the you go against intuition, it usually looks like you are trying to calculate a lot of the things, or you're trying to like make sure you don't fail, or all of these things. That's I find that all comes from this fear based approach, which again has its own value, right? But I feel like it should never trump the intuition or knowing of you still want to do this, right? And I always want to believe that whatever the calling, whatever the deep desire that we're wanting to follow, it always leads to success, whatever our definition of it. And even if we didn't get where we wanted to, we will so learn so much, and we'll feel good about ourselves for doing it. Even maybe logic dictated that shouldn't be, or that would cost, or whatever the logic is telling, right? So that's why, if that's happening, maybe your one exercise could be to say, okay, what if you could use your logic to back up the intuition, and how would that look like? Simply because you have that inner knowing that's suggesting that you could go that way, and then how logic can help you, even though your logic will probably also warn you and all the things, but also let's see how it can back up and what the result of that is. Okay, so we'll be talking a lot about intuition this month, so stay tuned. I think we have covered enough for now, and we'd love to get your feedback, get your questions, or come coach with us so that we can help you even further to get you listening to intuition and its value before you make a decision as to you want to follow it or not. So thank you, Viki. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Asel. Thank you, everyone.
And we'll see each other next Thursday.
Next Thursday.
Bye.
Bye.